Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. You've been keeping track with any of the stuff that's going on over in Israel? Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced Monday that the United States will no longer view Israeli settlements in the West Bank, Golan Heights, and East Jerusalem as inconsistent with international law. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because it cancels a legal position held by the U.S. State Department since 1978, when the Carter administration determined that the settlements were a violation of international law. These are Jewish settlements. On the other hand, the move is mostly symbolic. It'll have no practical implications. Israel insists that it will not harm them in any way, but it does reverse the Obama administration policy. It reverts back to the Reagan policy. But the move could be an obstacle to a peace deal. Peace deal between Israel and the Arab present, the Palestinians. But it's not an illegal thing. What they're trying to do in Washington is to advance the cause of peace, and it weakens the Palestinian effort for statehood, which is what is the furor. A PLO official said Israeli settlements steal Palestinian land, seize and exploit Palestinian natural resources, and divide, displace, and restrict the movement of the people of Palestine. Now, all of this is true if the land in question belongs to the Palestinians. If the so-called Palestinians were driven from the land in 1948, and if the Israelis are a new group of people to inhabit the region. If, however, the Israelis' claim to the land precedes the Palestinian claim, if the Palestinians who lived there never organized into a state, if the same Palestinians willingly abandoned their land in 1948, then the Palestinians now arguing for displacement of Israel by Israel are a relatively new political entity, not appearing until 1960. And if all of this is part of Israel's original heritage from the Lord, that changes it too. The truth here is that the Ottomans, Turkey, conquered this land hundreds of years before the 20th century. Ottomans were not Arabs. The Ottoman Empire was defeated by the British in World War I. This new owner, the British, favored giving Israel the right to portions of this land in 1917. The League of Nations awarded Britain a mandate over Palestine in 1922. Continuous Jewish immigration and British colonial rule led to an Arab revolt in 1936. This was the first nationalist movement among Palestinian Arabs. They weren't called that then. It came 12 years after Jewish settlement of the land. The failure to settle this issue is what led to the Six-Day War in 1948, a war Israel not only won, but gained more land under the millennia-old rules of conquest. The 20th century has seen the so-called Palestinians continually pushing to overturn the results of their own actions. It would be as though Great Britain would lay claim to 13 colonies in America years after being defeated in their battle to hold on to them. If it were not for the fact that the victors are Jews, we wouldn't be having this discussion at all. The whole thing is not about land. It's not about Jews. It's about God. It's about His purpose to establish a home for His people. And it's about the enemy of God working overtime to keep this from happening. Because if it should happen, Satan would be defeated. The Bible describes the conclusion in terms of Satan's persecution of the woman in the book of Revelation. This woman is Israel. The woman flees to the safety of a place where God will protect her as the enemy sweeps into the land and wreaks havoc, even desecrating the temple. keep in mind, in the book of Revelation, the temple, which is now a mosque, but won't be in the days leading up to this event, is going to be another horrendous event, another horrendous situation. As the enemy is about to win the battle, Jesus makes his entrance and everything changes. So when we're talking about Palestinian statehood, what are they talking about? Pompeo is calling the establishment of the civilian settlements inconsistent with international law and something that has not advanced the cause of peace. Now, the hard truth is that there will never be judicial resolution to the conflict. The arguments about who is right and who is wrong as a matter of international law will not bring peace. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says that Israel remains ready and willing to conduct peace negotiations with the Palestinians regarding all final status issues in an effort to achieve a durable peace, but will continue to reject all arguments regarding the illegality of the settlements. Israel is deeply grateful to President Trump, to Secretary Pompeo, and to the entire U.S. administration for their steadfast position supporting truth and justice. And they call upon all responsible countries who hope to advance peace to adopt a similar position. PLO official Saeb Erekat says Israeli settlements steal Palestinian land, seize and exploit Palestinian natural resources, divide, displace, and restrict the movement of the people of Palestine. In sum, Israel's colonial settlement enterprise perpetuates the negation of the Palestinian right to self-determination. Once again, this announcement the Trump administration is issuing demonstrates the extent to which it's threatening the international system with its unceasing attempts to replace international law with the law of the jungle. The Palestinians are seeking to accomplish something that literally no other people group in human history have ever been able to accomplish, having been defeated. First of all, not ever having a legal stated presence in the land, leaving the land on their own will, then coming back into the land several years later demanding you give it back is not something anybody has ever been able to do. But all of a sudden, Israel is some terrible person because they're just following the rules. Isn't that amazing? In other Israeli news, the United Nations gave preliminary approval for a resolution that calls the Temple Mount by its Muslim name exclusively. That name is Haram al-Sharif. This is according to the Jerusalem Post. The resolution passed at the UN's fourth committee in New York City has an overwhelming turnout of 154 votes to 8, featuring 14 abstentions and 17 absences. It was one of the 8 anti-Israel resolutions approved last week. An expected 15 more anti-Israel resolutions are anticipated in the future. The UN General Assembly will commence its final vote on the resolution next month. Israel and the United States were the only ones to vote against all 8 resolutions. Australia, Canada, Guatemala, Marshall Islands, Micronesia, Nauru joined them in voting against the Jerusalem exits. All of the 28 EU member states backed the resolution. Some of the resolutions related to both past and future Israeli ambitions to annex territory in Judea and Samaria. It read, the occupation of a territory is to be temporary, de facto situation, whereby the occupying power can neither claim possession nor exert its sovereignty over the territory it occupies. Clearly, the Temple Mount was built by Israel, was home to Israel's temple for several thousand years. One wonders how it can suddenly be Islamic, and how Islam can lay claim to it and be supported by almost the entire world. It's amazing, unless you've read the Bible. And then you know that Israel is the enemy of the world. The world that is controlled, governed, influenced by the devil. And that the West is the only semblance of Christian nationhood in the world. And it's very, very weak. The United States is the strongest. And you know we're not strong, not in this area. This battle is going to get bigger. It's going to get worser until Jesus comes.